Welcome to Africa Speaks of today. My name is Stephen Mulindwa, and as usual, I always bring something very interesting, especially in terms of what is really happening on the African continent and what is really happening in Africa itself and what is happening here in the United Kingdom. Because whatever happens here normally affects what happens in Africa. Decisions are made here sometimes and they affect issues that affect the African continent. And sometimes decisions are made in Africa that affect the Africans here in the diaspora. Now, what have I got in today's program? What helps to build a good ethnic community in London? By ethnic communities, of course, there are so many. There are Yugoslavians, there are Africans, they're all over the continent, they're here. There are others from other parts of the world who are, as far as this country is concerned, we are all ethnic in a way. Now, with more than 20 ethnic communities living and working in London, the question is, what helps to make one a better one? What makes a community a better one? So you don't have crime, you don't have all sorts of things that are happening. What makes it a better community? Is it religion? Is it schools? Or is it the government? Or it's something else? Now, Africa Speaks of today will try and answer these and many more of these questions about our communities here in the UK. And I'm sure so many people in the African continent will be interested, or not only the Africa, but throughout the world who are viewing us, will be interested in knowing what sort of communities we have here. Just like I was watching a program about New York, and it was so amazed to see how New York is divided into, there are blacks in certain areas, there are Jews, there are Italians, there are Germans, Greeks. You really have to find out which community you belong to in order to go there. Now, with me in the studio is Mr. Gerald Vanderpuye. I think I pronounced your name right this time.
Vanderpuye.
Vanderpuye. Okay, Vanderpuye. I'll put that in mind. An entrepreneur, culture activist will go that is culture activist, yes. Community builder. Mm-hmm. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be here.
Okay. The key thing here as an entrepreneur is obviously you want to work in an environment which is stable, with everything there, food, proper living, no police activities around to spoil the environment or the community and so on. First and foremost, what inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
Thank you, Stephen. A great introduction.
Yeah.
I think as an African, when I think back to my childhood, I was born in Ghana. I lived there till I was 15, and I had a dream of always coming to the UK, like most African kids. And why do we have this dream?
Which part of Ghana?
I'm from Accra.
Okay.
Yes, okay. Ghana and half Ghana, half a Kiapim. And I always really wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had this, I think it was very common. A lot of kids want to be entrepreneurs in Ghana, and I think we're forced to be entrepreneurs, in fact, because there isn't many opportunities. But when I came here in the UK, after working for perhaps a decade or two, you forget that dream that you had. And I think a lot of us, we call them entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. Someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, I call them a entrepreneur. Essentially, we're dreamers. These are the young people, the kids, the old people at home who are always telling you dreams about what they're going to be like in 10 years. And often we dream, but it rarely becomes a reality.
Yeah.
And I think you ask about what makes a community ethical and what makes a good community. I think you're referring to really equality. Equality in economics and equality in access and finance and being able to have the right education. And often a lot of us are not born into those opportunities. We're born in environments that are difficult, that is crime infested. Perhaps we're living in a council estate. We don't all get to have the highest education. And unfortunately, this tends to tarnish our ability to believe that we can do this.
No, really?
And for me, I was very lucky that very early on, when I decided to be an entrepreneur, I found a community of entrepreneurs. And I think this is one of the key things that I would encourage anyone that has a dream, that wants to start something.
The key thing is, how do you find that community? You know, someone was telling me he became something because he went to play golf.
Yes.
A friend invited him to go to play golf.
Yes.
He was never a golfer or anything.
Yes.
But when he discovered the kind of people who are at the golf course,
Yes.
Not only did he pay to become a member, he didn't even know how to play golf.
Right.
But because of the people who were playing golf and what kind of people they were, and the entrepreneurs, the engineers, the lawyers, the top quality politicians.
Right.
So he knew if he joins them, then the possibility of so many other things to happen. Is this the kind of thing?
Absolutely. I mean, they say your network is your net worth, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a good access to network, you tend to change your lives. And when we live in a community, often we lack access to those networks.
Yeah.
And what I'm suggesting today is much simpler, because we have specific communities that are built around entrepreneurship, and that's one of the companies that I own. I own a company called Impact Brixton.
Okay,
which is in Brixton.
yeah.
It is a co-working space, and ultimately it is a community of 400 entrepreneurs.
Wow.
That work together, right? Some of them work physically in the building, some of them come there when we do events or educational workshops, and ultimately when you join a community like that, and today sometimes it's from free,
Okay.
you begin to change your network, right? And so this is where you're able to not only see other people like you who are succeeding, which changes your mental framing of whether you can do it yourself, because often, Steve, that's the thing that holds us back.
Yeah, I know.
We don't believe that we can do it.
Yeah, until you see someone do it.
See someone that looks like you, talks like you, or is from where you're from, that can do that. And that's what worked for me. I found this community in Brixton. It was called Impact Hub Brixton at the time.
Yeah.
I walked in there with an idea, and Steve, within 2 years' time, I was able to raise £500,000 for my first company.
Jesus Christ.
And that is because
I've been looking for money. £500,000, that's a lot of money.
And that is because of who I met.
Yeah, exactly,
Who
exactly.
they were able to introduce me.
Yeah,
So often, my first recommendation to people is change your network.
Okay.
Go to these places, and today co-working spaces are all around the world.
Yeah.
We have incubators, we have hubs in every city
I know,
in the world.
they've even containers. There's containers. I've seen containers. They used to have one in Shodik a couple of years ago, and it's became something else. Brixton used to be a vibrant area, and it used to be more of a black area, and the changes. This is where you are, obviously, and that's why I'm asking this. There's so many changes that have happened in the area with redevelopments, but it seems to be Africans. In fact, they used to call it mini Lagos.
Right.
Yeah, because of the Nigerians who used to live there. So many of them, even up to now, there's certain areas which are called. There's an area still called mini Lagos. Now, over suddenly in the last 10 years. It's more like it's no longer what a black area. It's more like an English a town somewhere.
Sure.
But everything has changed.
Sure.
Could this affect the kind of entrepreneurs who are Africans, and suddenly you have these people in you find the English people in the neighborhood who might not be as good, not in a bad way, but who might not be entrepreneurs in a way that kind of things that you're trying to go through.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the point you make is really around what we call regeneration of the neighborhood, right? And you are right. Brixton was full of not just Nigerians, but actually a lot of Caribbeans.
A lot of Africans.
And a lot of Africans. But the Caribbeans actually moved there first in 1948 with Windrush. But I think it's a diverse place, and the reason why places like that attracts us is because we are from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. So often we move into these areas because they're not as expensive as perhaps a Mayfair or anywhere else, and Hackney was the same, and so this is common. But I think as these areas are filled with what we call creators, whether they are the restaurateurs or the bars or the new businesses, the property prices often are not as expensive as other areas. And
Yeah.
so this provides opportunity for investors who are interested in owning these assets that are essentially not very as expensive as some of the prime areas. They invest in it. And
Yeah.
when they invest in it, ultimately it changes. But I think, Steve, I think that there's no doubt that it's sad that so many of us has to move from there because perhaps we can't afford the buildings anymore. But I think we need to look at it much more balanced in a way.
It's the money issue.
It's an opportunity,
yeah,
is
okay.
what I'm saying.
All
There
right.
is an opportunity that often we miss.
Okay.
Impact Brixton occupies a 5,500 square foot space in Brixton Village, one of the most famous sort of establishments in Brixton, and we are probably one of the largest tenants in that in Brixton.
Okay.
Right, and we are a black-owned co-working space, a black-owned business, right? So often people don't see that. But I think the key thing that we really need to recognize is, number one, these things bring opportunities.
Okay.
And in entrepreneurship, we have to always be looking to change, to embrace these opportunities.
Yeah.
And I think we often, as Africans, as perhaps without the right education, we don't take, and without the right opportunities, to be perfectly honest, we're not able to take advantage of all of these changes. Today, things are changing. With technology, with access to funding, as I've mentioned, and with the opportunities to buy, we have never been in a stronger position to be able to change our destiny by owning a lot of these assets that exist in our neighborhoods, because that's the difference. Owning the buildings, as you put it, ensures you're there for a long time, ensures you are not at risk of being kicked out.
Yeah.
Ensures that if you can't, you can get the appreciation of the increase in the asset value if you own the building. So I think we need to really shift our mindsets from working, renting, to actually owning the assets, and that's what entrepreneurship is. It's about building assets, or it's about acquiring assets.
Challenges is one of the things that everybody talks about, not just entrepreneurs, but in most of the things that are being done. And with maybe fewer and fewer role models, there are more role models in sports, in football, in boxing, or in other sports, that people are looking at, especially younger people in schools. Because I attended an event recently, actually not far from here, and almost all the parents were bringing in the 10-year-olds to meet Ian Wright, to meet all these top footballers, because they are very inspirational. They played football. They want their children because of the money that's in football.
Of course.
Now, is there a possibility of getting people like Richard Branson or any of these top people to come in and say, hang on, there are young entrepreneurs here, or get the black entrepreneurs like what is this Nigerian billionaire? Dangote.
Yes.
And there's a couple of Ghanaian billionaires, who are existing. Is there a possibility to saying, hang on a minute, we need to raise these guys as well, to bring them here? Then the young entrepreneurs can have a look at them, and they can prop them up, or even organize big dinners. I attended a dinner 2-3 years ago where a plate cost £1,000, but it was for charity. But the top business people and so on were giving lectures, talking about where they've been and what have you, and there are practically no black person there, you see, other than me as a journalist who had gone to cover the story. What I'm trying to say is that are these things being raised among us as well? Because to encourage more of us to join these kind of schemes, which might be, well, it costs money, and to get £1,000 from a black fellow to come in and pay for a plate, those for charity. It would be murder. Somebody would say, no, where am I going to get that money? Are there schemes of this nature in place with what you're doing?
So I think it's important to highlight that times have changed.
Okay.
Times have changed. Today we live in a world where a kid in his room spending time on his laptop can create £1 million company without meeting Dangote.
Really?
Right? You can do that today by posting on Instagram. And creating content on social media. You can do that by building software and launching it, and within a few years you can. There's no doubt that we need role models and we need access to some of those places. But I think it's important to not set that as a challenge or something that is going to hold us back as young people and as entrepreneurs. Because as entrepreneurs today, what you need is to see perhaps you need the belief set. You need to see someone like Gerald, who was from a poor neighborhood in a council estate, raise £500,000 and build a tech company. That is, perhaps you'll believe that you're more likely to do that than to meet a Richard Branson, right? Okay. That is perhaps more powerful. In addition, technology has changed the game. We are no longer in a world where you necessarily need access to the highest net worth individuals before you can build something that is a game changer. And so today, but I don't deny that a lot of those things are happening, but there's also a lot happening online.
It's the challenges. Somebody viewing us will think, okay, maybe I'll take step by step and make this and do this. But at the end of the day, there's a huge, huge challenge, not just for Africans in the UK, but for Africans globally, we need to become successful people. You'll find that the challenges come in such a way that somewhere you're put off from the course that you're going because of the challenges that you're faced. Now, unless something comes in and says, okay, for those who are here, we're going to give a leeway for you to move in. I mean, it's the way the government does sometimes. You know, America, they've been doing it, where they said, okay, ethnic minorities, these are jobs that we are going to raise, make sure that they go. Although Donald Trump has changed that. He says, okay, everybody has a shot. But the problem is everybody having a shot is the chances that there will be those who have much better shots than the lower one. So in order not to leave somebody behind, you give everybody the opportunity. But in entrepreneurship, where you're doing business on your own, where you're doing things alone, and you know the challenges, is there something where, say for example, the government puts in a certain bid and say, no, for the you because you're raising, we are not going to tax you for this. Because we are doing this.
Sorry to interrupt. There is many of those opportunities. They exist. They exist. When I raised my funding, for instance, there are schemes that allows investors to invest in my company tax free. There are startup loans that you can acquire, which is low interest loans. There are competitions that you can win. In fact, my company won a competition with an organization called Mass Challenge, and they just gave me £25,000.
Wow!
Just for going and telling my story. I think the point that I'm making is that we are often too obsessed with the challenges and we don't see the opportunities. Right? The challenges will come, no doubt. But first, see the opportunities. You have to have an optimistic mindset as an entrepreneur to believe that you're going to get there. And this is why it's important to see people like you who are doing it, and that allows you to take action. Because when you take action, the challenges occur, but the challenges in front of you are much easier than the challenges in your head. Right? It's better to see the challenges and address them in the moment, because they become possible to overcome. But when you sit and talk about the challenges as an individual, then it holds you back. And so my advice to everybody is, today with technology, who you can meet, what you can do, the opportunities out there, there is really nothing stopping you from trying. From starting.
How about partnership? I had a lady here, an accountant, and she worked with several of these top banks. She was here less than 2 weeks ago, and we were discussing something with the EI and so on and all that. And she's been to Africa. She's, Anna Adams is her name. And one of the things she says that, of course, was found is that partnership in Africa is something that needs to be learned. You are trying to do that. The partnership structure, which is entrepreneurs here are doing, where you find 4 or 5 people who are running a company. They hardly know each other, but because they were in the same, so each one puts in a share, and they all have shares in this company. Black people have not known the share issue so much. It's not there. You find every man is for himself.
It's for himself in Africa.
How can you enlighten our viewers on this issue? How could we get into that? Because she mentioned it, and I said, okay, maybe we need to have a look at it and see
Yes.
Yeah.
I think this obviously boils down to trust, right?
Yeah.
And operating in a system of trust.
Yeah.
I think in the UK with and the West generally, we are blessed with often laws that you can trust on, and perhaps the law fighting for your right for a partnership agreement that you come to. So, but I think this is growing in Africa, and I think people are just not aware of how much is growing in Africa, and perhaps rather than thinking about it as partnership, I think one of the legal framework and the concept that you need to get your head around is, as someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, you can own a share in something, right?
Yeah.
You can own a share. Every company is divisible by shares, right? And it's important to own a small share in a company, even if you are not involved in the company. And I think ultimately,
I think
it's the ownership that we need to get our head around.
The key thing is the steps to get into that. Because they could be people with money somewhere, and they're definitely interested in joining and making shares and so on. But the thing is, they look at companies and they come and they say, we need to buy shares in your company. The person says, no, I'm sorry, I don't share. This is my company.
This is Africa you're referring to, right?
That's what I'm referring to. Now, the thing is, we even don't have, say for example, you can go on the web and start searching. You have your money. You want to put it somewhere. And if you want to put it in the stock exchange, for example,
you can, but it's very hard to give it to startups.
Exactly.
So today I came off a call with a Nigerian businessman in Nigeria, because I'm trying to buy a building in as I've said to you, I'm trying to buy a building in Brixton. Right? We're desperately looking for about £2.8 million to acquire this building. And this businessman I spoke to has never invested in a startup before, right? But of course, once I've spoken to him about what we're doing, it is easy for him to now invest in it, because there is a legal structure and a framework in which his money is kept to a certain extent protected, right? I think in Africa, I think this is happening more than people are aware of. Like I said, you go to an incubator in Kenya, in Accra, in Lagos, go to an accelerator program in anywhere across the Africa's major cities, and you will find startups, young entrepreneurs who are raising funding, who need money to take their business to the next level or to start their business. And whether you put in £1,000 or £500,000, you will find those opportunities. And I think now perhaps people are just not aware that this exists, but there is a lot of us raising money.
It does. But the thing is if it's a question of finding out where, because you often find somebody who is interested in something, but then it's not like, okay, football, you can go to a football club somewhere. A club of this, you can know if you want to trade in beer, if you want to trade in drums, for example, if you want to trade in any African products that comes around. There is always that element is, where do I go? What do I do? Who do I talk to? And so on. Sometimes certain businesses don't exist at the Department of Trade and Industry where you can go and get clear guidance. So you have to go through your community to see how you can work this thing out. Now, this is where we are. Do we need a one-stop kind of shop whereby you simply type in and say, this is what I want, and you go there? Do you need a kind of a website or something like that where people can actually go, like we go to the Africa Center and say, I need information on this. Ghana, I need information on Nigeria, and somebody will give
Steve,
it to you.
I'm sure that exists. I'm not very well. I don't operate any businesses in Africa, so none of the names come off the top of my tongue. But if you search startups in Kenya, startups in Accra, startups in Lagos, you would get a long list, and often the platforms will come up that are actually trying to support these. So it's a very easy Google search. But in the UK, for instance, if you're going to give your money to someone, you probably don't want to Google and find them, right? You want to meet that person, right? So what I would recommend is for you to go to these startup events. There's many of them happening in London. You can type Black business startups, right? And events, and you will find many events, and you go and you listen and you talk to people, and often it will come because you've educated yourself in the space and you've met a lot of these startups that you understand what they're doing, you believe in them, you like them, you trust them, and that's where carries on. But I think you cannot jump that relationship and just Google somebody and give them £5,000.
No, you can't do that.
Cannot do that.
Now, often the biggest failures we have as Africans,
right,
we have our cultural backgrounds, and we also have our tribal backgrounds,
right,
and we have all these backgrounds have a way in which they play a certain role in our success or failure. Because if I'm from Uganda,
right,
and I'm from a particular tribe, the Baganda tribe, and another tribe, and then I find another business person who is from another tribe or another cultural background in Ghana, the chances of me sitting down with you now and say, let's do this business together.
Right.
There is always a question mark. He's from Ghana, miles away, and
right,
where am I getting? You see, unless you've known each other for so long,
of course,
people want the kind of way in which these commitments, these issues,
yes.
the mindset we have, so that it goes away, so that these issues, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You can find a German investing with a British person.
Of course.
They don't have that problem.
No.
An Italian, I've got several Italians who are running certain things here with British people here. They don't have a problem. But we have that problem. These things keep following us. I mean, you're from Ghana. You know very well how this... you may find a Ghanaian who's interested, but somewhere along the way, no, the man is in Ghana. Is tree. No, those tree people are thieves. Yeah. we often get these things. How can we get ourselves on our feet and make sure that this is the kind of things that are putting us behind? How do we get rid of them?
Of course. And I mean, let's not get this confused. So
don't get me wrong. It's Africans out there. Don't get me wrong.
No, but this is not just African, Steve. This is British people like to work with British people. Irish people are more likely to work with Irish people. If you're American from Boston and you meet somebody else from Boston, you're probably going to prefer to work with them. It's just we look for people that we can trust, and people that share the values and our history. We trust them more, right? And so I think it's something we need to overcome, because we now live in a world where the best opportunity might be not from your neighborhood, right? So you need to think about if you're trying to find the best businesses, it is not always going to come from the people that you know. We are a global world now. Like the internet is connected everywhere.
It's a global village now.
Indeed. And so you have to think global if you're thinking about anything, because your supply will come from here and your distribution will go to here. And so you need to think about global, and you will ultimately work with lots of different people, because the most successful businesses today are a diverse company. You find a good web designer from India. You find a good data scientist from China, right? You cannot just wait, and if you're just thinking about your own people, you will be left behind.
No, the thing is how to overcome it. That's the key question. I'm sure there are hundreds of them out there who are with a right clear mind and they want to do it. But there is always that energy in the background. And there's a question mark always in the background. It's maybe the way we are brought up, or maybe it's something. I mean, to become an entrepreneur, a business person, you have to have a bold mind, you have to be bold and strong to go into something. Because it's like, how do I go into the dark? I don't know, I might lose my money, I might do. There is always the element, because either go in blindly, because I watched Richard Branson give us a lecture at one time, and he was saying, look, if you're afraid of failure, don't go into business. Don't. Because business is something which could be up and then down the next minute.
Correct.
The stock exchange can come, or things will come, and so at the end of the day, if you're a person with a heart problem, don't go in, because you may have a heart attack tomorrow and we lose you. So he was giving that. Now I looked at that scenario with the Africans. Maybe the boldness that we have to go into this. That's why when I look at people like you, I say, where does this boldness comes in?
You know, my grandfather once said to me, if you are scared and you pray to God, for courage. He doesn't give you courage. He gives you an opportunity to demonstrate courage. Right? And I think entrepreneurship is the same. None of us are really bold. We just take action, despite how we feel. Right? And often, I think, with all due respect to Richard Branson, with all due respect to Richard Branson, I think what most people miss from failure is that, the lesson and the price of failure is the experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which often it is so much, it can be more valuable than the actual failure. And I'll give you a quick story. Most people don't think about this, but Airbnb, are they a success or a failure?
They're a success.
They are a success.
Yeah.
However, the original story of Airbnb, if you know this, is that there were a group of young kids in San Francisco, right, who were trying to convince, they thought hotels have run out in San Francisco. Yeah. So their friends who have spare bedrooms, they were going to give them an air bed, you know, the bed that you blow up. They put it under their bed and then they rent the air bed
to the
people that can't get a hotel, and then they make them breakfast in the morning.
Yeah.
That was a terrible idea, Steve.
Yeah,
they failed.
Yeah.
But without that failure, they wouldn't be where they are right now.
Yeah.
So often with all businesses, we fail before we get to where we need to get to. That is inevitable. But without taking action, you don't make that leap. Because it is like walking in the blind, but in the dark, but it's not quite. Because what you're doing is like walking in the dark and asking somebody, where should I go? Left, right, or forward? So long as you listen. You even if you go left, they say no, it's the wrong direction. Okay, let me come back and go forward. It is often a process of learning. So you need to drop the fear of failure, because it's not really failure, it's the fear of failure that holds us back, and take the action regardless.
Should everybody have plan B?
In terms of?
Yeah, in terms of this kind of thing, if I'm to go there now, I think there's a plan B, there's something at the, maybe I should have £100,000 left here, and I'm using 20. If something doesn't work, there should be this. Because that's where sometimes the boldness comes in. If I go down, I could go down completely, and I might not get out. So there is always that element. So some people say, no, don't ever have plan B. Just go for plan A, and plan A, and plan A, and plan A. But then others are saying, no. I've always had plan B, and plan B, like one man told me, plan B is my wife. I said, well, how is your wife? I said, when business are not working, my wife has a good job. I can run back to the home and say, at least I have a home. She's plan B. Her job is good. We can survive on that until I get up. But if the wife was seated at home and she takes care of the kids and he's the only person working, then that's only plan A. If something goes wrong with plan A, then they're out in the street. So
this is an excellent question. It's an excellent question. And often people will always, whatever I say, someone will find a story that contradicts it, right? And so you need to think about it in a different way, right? Because someone might go, they might play it like poker. 1 million all in, and then it might win 100 million. And another 10 people will put 1 million all in and lose all their millions, right? So it is very difficult to use like a story to make this point. But I think a way to think about it is to think that you don't always need to like quit your job to start a business. Right? You can take small actions and still keep your job, right? And sometimes people always assume it's one or the other. Now, sometimes your business might be doing so well that you need to focus on it. Right? The customers are saying, hey, if we had 1 million people watching this right now, we will hire more people, right? You would throw all the money in and say, hey, let's go, let's hire more people, let's buy a new studio. But sometimes it doesn't make sense to do that from day one. So you can do small things to test the market. And I think this is what I teach at a few universities around something called customer development. And this is the idea that when you have an idea, a business idea, you don't just go to the bank and say, hey, I need 1 million to execute this idea. You have to get some evidence that the idea is a good idea.
In other words, do some kind of feasibility study.
Correct. And the easiest way to start is to talk to people, right? And there are techniques in which you can do that, to speak to someone and see whether, hey, if once I build this, will they come? And once I've spoken to 100 people, if I believe that, 50 of them are interested, it gives me more confidence. So I can put more money in, right? And then I build a small version of it and I test it, maybe 10 people buy it, it gives me more confidence. But if I speak to 100 people and all of them say no, they don't want it, why would I go all in?
Exactly. You can't go.
You cannot. So it's a process of really taking small actions to confirm your assumptions about your business.
So you believe in plan B?
I believe in plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Absolutely. I think it's called optionality. Sometimes I'm running 3 companies right now. 4 companies. In fact, 4 companies.
Wow.
Right. I own a co-working space. I have a software company, right?
Yeah.
And I have I'm hoping that we will be able to launch some rum in Brixton very soon.
Oh.
So because I own a distillery.
I need a job, man.
No.
Now that you're mentioning this,
you need to start a business, Steve. That's why we're here. That's what you need to do.
Give me a job.
You've
man.
already got a business
with all these
here.
companies around. I could run one of them for you.
But the point is that all of them sometimes I test.
Yeah.
None of them are incredibly successful yet, right? But I'm testing, I'm learning. And when something catches fire, I can go.
Yeah, exactly.
We are going in plan A, right?
Yeah. I get your point. Now, Africa, as you're aware, who live in the diaspora,
yes.
Africa is our home in a sense that we go there, we do business there, we do whatever we want to do, and there are so many things which are not going right sometimes with the governments, with so on and so on. But there is always a system that works for certain people. Now, I don't know. You're born in Ghana, whether you do any business at all in Ghana or not, or everything is concentrated here. But there are Africans who have certain things they're doing, and I'm certainly one of them. My home is there. I got stuff that I'm doing there, on and off. I'm just trying to find out, what kind of advice would you give somebody now who has two legs, one leg there, one leg here? Or should it simply be one complete leg here and then forget about the other leg? Because there is always, almost every one of us has had relatives taking money from them.
Right.
And the others have even taken everything and disappeared.
Right.
You know, others have been killed even.
Yes.
You know, recently in Uganda, I think a doctor who had worked in Switzerland for so many years, something happened and he got killed. But we got stories that it was relatives. It was an inside job from the family. Now, these and many more stories are out there. What kind of advice would you give somebody?
I think it's important to mention that our people we are still suffering, right? We are as a nation, we have a lot of youth. We're going to have more youth than anywhere else in the world, and our economic system is not strong and it's not supporting a lot of people there. So naturally, people are hungry. And people are, and so it's going to be harder to do business out there when people can't pay they can't meet their basic necessities. And I think I have no direct successful experience in Africa, so I don't have a specific advice for anyone. But what I would say is, if which I will do, when I am going to start something in Africa, I plan to spend a lot of time there.
Yeah, okay. So time is the major issue.
I think time gives you data. Whether it's about people and whether you can trust them, or whether it's about understanding the market, and there is a sense of you needing to be there for me. And so that would be my advice. Until this day, I'm yet to meet somebody who is here 99% of the time and very successful in Africa. And so I haven't met that person yet.
Well, there's several. There's the Kenyan I've met, and I think I've met another Ugandans, but most of them, what they have done is basically build projects which don't really require supervision. I mean, for example, you buy houses, which are already done, you put tenants in, and the person who looks at, you open a company, and the company is simply to look after those, There's a Ghanaian friend I met years ago, and he told me that's the business he does. He's based here, and he has about 10 to 15 houses in Accra, and all he does is simply every end of the month. In fact, he paid his mortgage from Ghana, or from here, and then he's buying houses here. I mean, he's in real estate. So there are certain, I think, projects which can work but then there are others, like, for example, agriculture or farming or something. Those need your presence. You see.
But like I said, I have no experience, so those guys will probably be a better bet to listen to. But I think you just don't know what skill sets and what connections people have. So sometimes just because they are here doesn't mean they don't have someone who's already verified and trusted who is managing things there for them. So it's
that could be. That's why Western companies were successful, because all they could do, they open up a plant somewhere in Africa, and they don't necessarily need to be there. They know, get good managers, get someone else there, and get one of their people there, but then get all the others who are paid, and that's it. And the company becomes successful. They don't necessarily need to be there, but it's a kind of partnership that works. Joint partnership with the diaspora, within the diaspora. now that you're working the way you are and with the company, with your company and so on. Say, for example, we get people from Ghana, all of them, not all of them anyway, business people from Ghana, to have some kind of joint monthly partnership or meetings or something like that, because they have something in common from Ghana, like the way the lawyers or engineers or something like that usually form organizations. Is this possible with the business people? Because I've seen it with lawyers, I've seen it with the engineers, African engineers, and it certainly exists with journalists. African journalists, we've got an organization that you know sprung from the National Union of Journalists, and it's a particular one for African journalists. We have 2-3 months meetings or something like that. But does that exist? Can that exist with the entrepreneurs?
So I think entrepreneurship broadly can sometimes be too broad of a subject to create communities around. It happens, and the Diaspora certainly, I'm sure a platform like that can exist, and I'm even surprised I don't know one that exists. I'm sure there is one that exists in the US that I've seen, and I'm sure it's very good. It's incredibly powerful at connecting people. But I do think that people are already connecting in other ways globally online, whether it's Facebook groups, whether it's Instagram groups, whether it's Twitter groups, and often it's around subject areas. It could be around farming or AI or crypto, or there are other subgroups that cross Africa and that the diaspora is connecting on more than broadly entrepreneurship and business, because sometimes that can be too broad and you don't quite see what the value is in it for you, right? But if you're making a physical, let's say you're making coconut water here, right? You might want to connect with farmers in across Africa, right? Because then there is a benefit. So I think that the communities look slightly different today than perhaps the general business communities that existed a few decades ago.
Years ago. Now, it's because you're coming most of the time. You're mentioning the internet. You're mentioning, obviously there will be other things like the AI, but then it is that human element which is disappearing. If we continue with the internet alone, and you're sitting at home and you can do something, there is that human interaction which, if it doesn't happen, and it gives you an edge of learning from somewhere, as you said several times, you said, oh, you can sit on the internet, do this and get this business sorted out here, you can do this, but the human element also comes in somewhere along the way. Where I speak to you, there's something I might get from you rather than getting it from the computer, the internet. Wouldn't that be of a much more encouragement? Because since you have the impact, the impact, people, I guess people turn up. They turn up. They don't just go on the internet. They have to be there presently,
no doubt,
physically. So that's the kind of thing that I've seen that needs to be dealt with in terms of, say, oh, you must come in and we must work on this. I don't know whether you have that as a kind of an enforcement as well, to help broaden people's mind.
There is no doubt that people are isolated more and lonely more now because of the internet, right? People are spending so much time on their phones and online, and it means that we often really do miss in real life human connection. So you are absolutely right, and that's one of the main reasons why I started Impact Brixton, because I think we couldn't have done that online. Having people in the space, feeling the energy coming in, listening to music, the events that we're doing, the meaningful connections that's happening, that can never be replaced by online, an online experience. So there's no doubt that that's needed. But I think I want to be clear that we need both, Steve. See, the reason why we need both is because the internet gives you global access to everybody. If you are selling anything you are selling, or making or selling, you have global access to lots of people that can buy it, sell it for you, or help you make it. And so when you think of the internet, it gives you access to everybody that's online. And I think that's often why most businesses today are successful.
I've seen somebody who sits at home and is always selling some things on eBay. He buys them at a certain price, and then he raises the puts the bar, and then he sits on eBay,
Yes.
and he goes on eBay and he sells them after.
Because he's got a marketplace of perhaps hundreds of millions of people.
But he's one of the most loneliest people I've ever known.
Sure. So he should spend his weekends out sometime.
The thing is that there is always that thing that if I don't log in the next 10 minutes, there could be a deal. There could be something that I could get for maybe £50, and I sell it for £200.
Right.
You know, someone could put it, someone quickly could take it. So there is always that element. Sometimes he's on his phone.
Of course.
When you're talking to him, he's busy.
Not even focused on you.
Yeah, he's not. Then he goes, what was that? What was that?
Right,
because he's always, you know.
Right.
So I look at it from that angle, and I said, maybe this is where we Africans are heading as well in terms of...
I think unfortunately all of us have problems. You have two phones on your desk as we talk, right? And both of them are taking at least a few hours of your time every day. So we are losing ourselves on the phone a lot more, and it is a really important problem to call out, to say we need real human connections, and nothing beats that. But I think when it comes to business, I think what you need to think about is what we're trying to do as entrepreneurs, or certainly what I am trying to do, is to free as much of my time as possible. I want freedom. I don't want to be a slave to my company, right? I want to spend time with my daughter, my son, and my wife. And
with all those companies, I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. See that happening in the near future. You need to build it. You're looking more at saying, look, it has to climb up. And then the money comes in, because that's the concept we know. That's the thing we normally have in our head.
Right. But then you're assuming a human being is the one who is scaling this. Like some people have businesses and tech businesses where they don't have to be involved at all.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they spend all their time, hopefully, with human beings. Right.
I know. And a word of advice from Africans in terms of business, the key elements, because when we meet a person like you who has been in there, you're still doing it, but you have much more wide experience in a sense that you've done it. You can even lecture on what is next. What are the key? There's always 1, 2, 3, 4. You have this, you know, and some other people will always have a wrong approach and said, you need to have money. You need to have money, definitely. If you don't have money, don't even try to think about it. You need to have this. I mean, you need to have a car. You need to. I mean, there are certain things which, when you look at them, basically, and some of them might not even be anything to do with with what you need to have.
Right.
Yeah, you just need to have the brain, maybe, or something like that. You know. So what are the components of the main things an entrepreneur really needs?
Without lecturing Africans that are on the ground in Africa, particularly the fact that I'm not on the ground, but I visit Ghana at least once a year. I stay there for 5 weeks at a time, and I mean, last year I was there 2-3 times, and so I'm Ghanaian as always, and I travel across Africa also. I think that the one thing that I would speak to from this side is that we see that Africa has never had a better opportunity to be able to address the many problems that we have. In entrepreneurship, opportunities are equivalent to problems. A problem is an opportunity. So where there are many problems, there are many opportunities. And so Africa has many opportunities. Yes, Africa has challenges because perhaps there's lack of access to finance and infrastructure and technology, but there are also more opportunities, right? All of those things are opportunities. And I think what has never existed in the past for Africa that exists now is two things. Is the technology and access to the rest of the world. Right, and the access to the rest of the world brings knowledge, brings potentially money, and brings customers, and all sorts of things. So you've got to find a way of connecting with the outside the world if you can't find the things you need to do locally.
Education. Is that a key component? Because a Kenyan professor was telling me, although they are Africans who are not highly educated, not educated in terms of that, but who are successful business people, but their numbers are less. The success ones are those with a good education and good connection. And he was telling me at some point, say, look, I think the biggest problem in Africa is you need always, who do you know?
Right.
Yeah. Who do you know? Do you know anybody in the government? Your taxes may go rocket high because somebody needs a bribe. This is common in Kenya. It's common. Sorry,
everywhere.
Yeah, it's common everywhere. Yeah. So this is the biggest failure, the biggest thing that wraps most of the African entrepreneurs is that, because if you know nobody somewhere in the government, then the chances are whatever you bring in, if it's profit margin, if for example you are challenging someone else who is already on the ground and earning a lot of his money, and he knows the president or he knows the prime minister.
Right.
What chances have you got of survival? Of course, they're not.
Yes.
Your business will collapse. So the thing is other than that challenge, he sees that as the main challenge. Of course, you have connection. You can get connected to any part of the world. But when you're bringing something in or you are selling something abroad, some people have reached the airports and their staff been removed because of ABCD, and they said, hang on a minute, how did this happen? They said, yeah, because somebody else is doing a similar business and is trying to discourage you to do that. These are the things that I look at as the key main problems.
Talked of challenges earlier, right, and how to think about them. And I think there's no doubt that everything you've mentioned is real and it's challenges. And I think it's one of the reasons why many people will not even attempt to
do something.
But that doesn't mean it's not an opportunity.
Okay.
And I think it's important to say that yes, they might have a much bigger challenge than we do, but that's also because they have a much bigger opportunity than we do, right? And so, and often these challenges, it's easy to give them energy up front. It's better to deal with that challenge if I was to sell products and services and put it in the airport, right? And my business was to collapse because they come and clear everything and put it. What I have learned in the process of doing that means I'm more capable of going to do something else. I've gone through that challenge, and usually I'm better for it.
Yeah.
And so and often my friends that are very successful in Africa, most of them are not traditionally educated. They're not the most, they didn't go to an Ivy League university. Often education is now a lifelong thing. We can't stop learning, right?
No, you can't.
The internet is our university, and we can learn anything we want to learn at any point. And so whether you're educated or not, yes, it might be harder for you, but that doesn't mean you can't learn. Okay. So I would say my advice to Africa is, and any entrepreneur globally, to be honest, is yes, the challenges exist, but you can overcome any challenge with just taking the next step. And just whether you fail or not is the step. What do you need to do next? And that is what's empowering you. Okay. That is what empowers us.
I always come to this point, and it is always something which is, I've always been told even by my colleagues, not in various areas that I've been in the media. I said, look, always don't forget to bring in a question that is involving women. Women business people. Now, I don't know whether you've come across that, because if you have come across men it's a predominantly male-dominated business, but women are there too, and they're trying their level best to go. Now, their challenges may be different from those of the men in a way that some of them have the families, they have to look after children, they have to employ someone else to do most of the running and all that. So their challenges are probably much more bigger than that of the men. But what kind of advice would you give a woman who is an entrepreneur?
So firstly, let me correct something.
I know you're not.
Firstly, let me correct something. So I think at Impact Brixton, we have more female entrepreneurs than we do male entrepreneurs.
Whoa.
Most of today, entrepreneurship, if you go to events, there are more female participants. More females are starting businesses than a lot of men today. And why is that? Because they often have the greatest challenges, more than us. And so that, like you said, they have to look after the kids, they've got to look after the home, there is expectations on them, and they can't get a full-time job. And so they are left with often no choice but to start something. Right? And in Africa, a lot of the times, there's a lot of female entrepreneurs.
There's so many.
So in fact, I would challenge that we have a lot to learn from our female entrepreneurs in terms of starting, in terms of taking the leap forward. They are leading us into this space, even though they have more challenges than we do.
Okay. What kind of advice then you give them?
I think
Because it's much as you say, it could be the same as the kind of advice you give a gentleman, for example. But then it is always the gender issues are always extremely different in terms of the way they are, in terms of also the kind of business that they do.
Right.
You know, because there are certain businesses that they will do, and they wouldn't want a man who look at those businesses and say, no, for example, the market business.
Yes.
So many women are there, and there are men there as well. But the numbers are not as many as those of women.
Course, yeah.
And then, of course, there are women products which are sold on a regular basis. Again, it goes to that.
Yes.
Men will always look for different kind of things to deal with.
Yes.
You know, and now with the computer age, the dominance also has come in that, you know, most of the men who are dealing with these internet issues are men.
Yes.
Yeah. So
okay, so I'll answer that question
yeah,
very quickly. So
yeah.
I think the first thing is that we started this conversation by talking about ethical communities and ethical entrepreneurship, right? And I would say often female entrepreneurs are pursuing something with purpose.
Okay.
They are not pursuing profit first.
Yeah.
They are often driven by something they want to change. They want to help the community. They open more social businesses than men. They open, if they start a hair shop, it's because they're passionate about hair. They're passionate about food. They start a restaurant. So I think we have a lot more to learn from them in that capacity, because often your passion, your purpose is the thing that's going to drive you the most. That's what's going to get you to take the first step. So I would say, from what I've seen in my community, we have a lot more to learn from female entrepreneurs than we think, because we would create much more purposeful businesses. If I had advice to give to women, and this is me stereotyping and generalizing, I think we need more of our women to be in tech. Okay. We need them to be tech orientated. We need you. We know it's techie and you don't trust AI. And my partner says the same thing. And there's lots of friends that are like, they don't want to use the technology. Not everybody. I know there's a lot of women, particularly black women in tech, but I think generally speaking, they prefer people over technology, right? And so I think thinking about
people over technology,
thinking about how technology can help you scale without losing your connection with your audience, your community, and your people, I think is what's really going to help you to take it to the next level.
So in two words or three words, the kind of entrepreneur, what would somebody in entrepreneurship, the key words be in terms of this is what you need, this is what you need, this is what you need? Because we're coming towards the end of the program, and I want the viewers to have something to go with, especially those interested in doing in being entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs,
Yeah, I think if I was to, entrepreneurship is about first overcoming your lack of belief, right? Materializing your belief. Okay. And in order to do that, the first thing I would recommend is to find a community. Find a group of people that look like you, that are doing something similar, so you can begin to bounce your energy off them. Okay. That's the first thing I would say. Find that community that you need to belong in. And then the second thing is to focus on the focus on what you can do.
Yeah.
What can I do today? And let everything else take care of itself.
Those two things.
Action.
Yeah. Action plan. Yeah, you get it from a man who is who is very successful as far as the business concept is concerned. I just want to say thank you very much for coming here. And
pleasure.
I'm sure our viewers have learned a lot from this, especially the Africans. Take this very seriously, and if you want to do business, want to become an entrepreneur, the gentleman is here. Right. I just want to say thank you very much for viewing us, and I hope we'll be together again next week for another edition of Africa Speaks. Thank you, and may God bless you all.